Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of An Attempt to Fly Under the Radar. This will be Part 3. Chapter 4. 10 Years Worth of Bullying versus Dadmite. Why are you deliberately underperforming in class? Though there was no anger in the question, Izuku still couldn't help but tense up in preparation to be yelled at. He bit the inside of his cheek, gripping onto the bottle so tightly that it was violently shaking. He stared down into his lap as his mind raced a kilometer a minute. How was he going to answer that question? "We're not mad at you, young Midoriya," All Might kindly reiterated, placing a hand on top of Izuku's head. "We just want to make sure that your potential is being fully realized and nurtured. We're your teachers, and it's our job to help you." But what if he got Bakugo in trouble? So what if he did? He's been getting away with too much for too long. What if Bakugo found out? Then he should just worry about himself for once in his life. He already nearly killed him during the battle trials. Who's to say he wouldn't try again? Izuku would have to make sure Bakugo wouldn't succeed and scare him away from ever putting his hands on him, even if it got him in trouble. Would All Might believe him? He wouldn't let Izuku cut his losses and run when Bakugo refused to work with him in the finals. Would All Might tell Mr. Isawa? Why did it matter what Mr. Isawa thought? He clearly hated Izuku and nothing he did was good enough for him. So why did he even bother trying? What should he do? Do I have to answer that question, All Might? He quietly asked in a bid to stall for time. Not until you're ready, All Might responded. But I want you to know that I'm here to listen whenever you are ready. I won't judge, and I won't even say anything unless you want me to, young Midoriya, okay? Well, how was Izuku supposed to leave things as they were after that? He shifted where he sat. Well, it's a long story. The older man warmly chuckled. We have all the time in the world for you to tell it. And so he did. It was messy, with pauses, stutters, and tears, but the story was finally told. Izuku told All Might about the humiliation and mistreatment from teachers whenever he couldn't keep his damn mouth shut, whenever he was accused of cheating for doing well on an assignment, or singled out for stupidity when he failed. He told All Might about Bakugo's threat to him on the first day of school, how it stuck him in a lose-lose situation with Bakugo on one end, and Mr. Isawa on the other end. Did he stay the useless Deku and problem child with his not up-to-par grades, compared to Bakugo's at the very least, or did he perform to his potential and suffer from Bakugo's wrath? He even showed All Might the burns littering his body, in a desperate attempt to show that he wasn't lying. The symbol of peace patiently listened, his face betraying no emotion even as Izuku showed the injuries given to him by his so-called childhood friend. Instead, he nodded his head and asked the occasional question for clarification. Once the story was finished, the two sat in silence for what felt like forever. While Izuku admittedly felt as if a weight had been lifted off of his shoulders, he wasn't expecting for his mentor to look so worn down. He seemed downright aggrieved as he sat with his eyes closed, each breath coming out as a deep sigh. I'm sorry. Izuku jolted. He had been expecting many things once he finished his story, but an apology wasn't one of them. And why was All Might apologizing to him? What had he done wrong to him? It was Izuku's fault for not gritting his teeth and dealing with Bakugo's lessons, abuse. He was a hero in training, for crying out loud, so what if he got a few burns? I completely misjudged the relationship between you and young Bakugo, All Might said in a slow, steady voice. He looked incredibly ashamed as he bowed his head. Up until the final exam, I had been under the impression that it was a mutual rivalry. I should have realized by the way he acted around you that this wasn't the case. I had my suspicions during the exam, but what you've told me now has confirmed it. I'm sorry for not doing what I should have done back then and pursued the matter further. Izuku's stomach clenched and his head swam as the cold, hard truth tried washing over him. Bakugo was a bully. Bakugo was his bully, not a childhood friend, not an acquaintance, and not even a rival. He was nothing more than a bully. But he had such a perfect quirk for heroics. How did that make him a bully? He was never going to respect Izuku, but it was his fault for being quirkless. Izuku would never win when it came to catering to Bakugo's demands. Kachan couldn't be the #1 hero if Izuku kept cheating and being a problem. He deserved to be backhanded in the face during the final exam. He should have just done what Bakugo said and killed himself.
The way that young Bakugo has treated you up to this point is inexcusable, and I'll be having a long talk with Isawa and Principal Nezu about his punishment."
"But it's Bakugo," Izuku interrupted, though his voice lacked the conviction it used to have while defending the hot-tempered blonde. He's got a powerful quirk."
"What about it?" All Might bluntly asked, looking incredibly unimpressed with that logic. "Are you saying that because One for All is a powerful quirk, it gives its holders free rein to treat people however they want?"
Izuku's face flushed. "No, of course not. He works really hard."
"He works no harder than you or the rest of your classmates, and I don't see you all using that as an excuse to bully other people," All Might said, almost immediately. Did he have that retort sitting on the tip of his tongue? Is he really wrong? Look at how hard I've been working, and all I get is scolded or reprimanded. Izuku felt his lip begin trembling, his eyes filling with tears as he weakly insisted.
But Mr. Isawa."
All Might's eyes flashed with barely contained anger as he quietly said, "Oh, believe me, young Midoriya, I'll be having a long discussion with Isawa regarding his part in all this. Being a hard worker is no excuse for repeatedly breaking UA student code of conduct." Izuku hiccuped, shaking his head as he failed to hold back his tears. If All Might was right about Bakugo, he was. If he was right that Izuku never should have been treated the way he had been for the past 10 or so years, he shouldn't have been. Then...
"But Bakugo's my friend."
"I'm sorry, but a true friend would never treat someone the way you've been treated, young Midoriya." That did it. The force of a decade's worth of denial being ripped away and replaced with validation from his idol made Izuku double over crying. It was all too much for him to process at the moment, and he just wanted to get away, but he couldn't. Instead, he felt All Might's hand cup the back of his head and gently pull him into his side, hugging him tightly. His mentor said nothing, just resting his cheek on the top of his head and rubbing the back of his neck with his thumb, as he let Izuku cry, and cry his lungs out. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 4 of An Attempt to Fly Under the Radar. Chapter 5 will be up next. Personally, I'm a huge fan of this chapter. I really like the fact that All Might is supportive in this one, and that he's the one that really steps up. I think the author does a really nice job having Izuku, really get that off of his chest to his own mentor. I see a lot of All Might bashing fics, but I just think this one does a really nice job of kind of flipping the script on this. So let me know your overall thoughts and reactions to everything in this one so far. Like I said, Chapter 5 will be up next, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.